Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. I'm Abe with MysticGenMara.com, a small town mystic from the middle of Idaho. And tonight, and whenever you happen to be seeing this, I would like to go over some information about the Sabbat that is occurring at this time. A lot of people will know this as the autumn equinox, but in the old world, this was called Mabon, in the older tongue, I guess you could say. And this was one of the ancient Sabbats. It is the official start of fall, is how we look at it today. And traditionally, and I'm a traditional person, so this is where I go, the Sabbat was celebrated on the 21st of September, which is why I'm having this video go live on that day. Although you can, depending on what calendar and what the planets are doing, it moves around a little bit. Astrologically, it starts on the 1 degree of Libra, and it's under the banner of elemental air, so this is a time for a lot of introspection, but it's a lot more mind-oriented than some of the other ones, which is nice. But you're still in a unique time when you come into the Sabbats. The world itself feels different. The world itself responds different to your energy, and if you're really listening to your soul, you know that something is changing, and that's one of the things that happens at Mabon. In some of the traditions, this is a time where the Lord, if you look at the Lord and Lady concept from ancient pagan traditions, the Lord will descend into the underworld, but that's not quite the way I see it. This, for me, is where the Lord is handing over his power to the lady, to the goddess. And the god is standing between two worlds, the world of life and the world of death. And she realizes that she has to let him go, so this is a start of a mourning period for her, which is kind of sad in one sense, but when you look around, especially in the northern hemisphere where this falls on Mabon, the world itself is quieting. Things are settling down. We're not quite to Samhain yet, but we're getting into that state where you start pulling stuff in, if you're someone who has a garden, you're starting to, prepare everything to be preserved for later. And with the Lord stepping into straddling two worlds, the temperatures start to drop. And I'm sure if you are someone who, like me, sleeps with your window open, you certainly needed that blanket about 4 or 5 nights ago. And the lady in her sadness also pulls her energy away, so that the spurt of life that occurred in the spring and through the summer is starting to dwindle. The trees turn yellow and gold and red and all the beautiful colors. Your garden starts to die down. Things don't grow as fast. The squash are starting to put on their finishing colors. The tomatoes are, settling in. So as she pulls back as well, she draws her energy in because there is an upcoming birth that she has to prepare for, and she has to deal with the grief of losing her partner. And with equinox energy, it's kind of in the name, this is a time of balance. Same thing with the spring equinox in March, the autumn equinox in September. The light and the dark are in neutral. They are in balanced states with each other. Neither one holds power over the other, which makes this a very beautiful time to find the balance within yourself, between the masculine and the feminine, the light and the dark, the positive and the negative. We all carry both energies. We live in a dualistic world. So this is a time to meditate on these differences. And notice how they're actually the same. They're just mirrors of each other. There's really no difference when you start to look at it from that perspective. You're seeing a reflection of something. When you look in the mirror, what you see in a mirror is not what you see in a picture, because a reflection is not the same as a photograph. And that's what understanding the balance of the light and the dark really actually means. So it does change how you look at stuff. In a lot of the ancient tongues or the lore around Mabon, this is actually the pagan tradition of Thanksgiving. It's the second harvest. For some, it's the fruit harvest. Others, it is the end of all grain harvests, meaning everything's inside. Now it's time to let it dry out, time to willow it, time to start grinding wheat, all of those things. The harvest itself is over, but the work is far from complete. And in some places, you can trace this type of a Sabbat at this time period around 3000 BC. There's some people estimate you can track it back further. 3000 BC is about where I've usually seen it. And this is a time, if you are in a situation where you can actually have an altar, this is a great time for that, because everything that you go to the grocery store, the farmers markets, down the street to the pumpkin mazes that are starting to pop up, this is the time for all of that to be on the altar. If you're not in a situation where you can do an altar, that's fine. Start bringing in the squash. Start bringing in the baskets of apples and pears that you can have around for a while. You can even bring in some places grapes. This is a time to really focus on the leaves, especially those big maple leaves. Stuff you get around silver maples, their leaves have this intense red, and they last for a while inside before they start to crumble and flake and carry on. But this is a good time to have those around, changing out your tablecloths from the summers, the greens, the blues, the yellows, or the vibrant floral print, to the more autumn colors, the leaves, the deeper yellows, the oranges, even browns, stuff like that. This is the time for those energies and those colors to come forward. You can use the apples specifically in different rituals to remind yourself of the blessings of the harvest, to remind yourself of what has been. And the best way to keep that memory in place is, and I don't have an apple with me, I totally forgot that one I was out today. When you cut the apple, not from top to, like normal people cut them from top to bottom, cut it across the middle, and when you turn it open, you'll see there's a 5-pointed star, which is the balance of all elements being opened to uplift spirit. Earth, air, fire, water. When you join them together, they pull in spirit, which is where you get your 5-pointed star or pentagram. And so when you see that, it's a way to remember, what are the blessings that you've received? This isn't like Samhain where we're going through the more sad times. It is a time to help you understand, what have you achieved this year? It's time to check in, but it's a time of reflection and quiet contemplation. This is one of the Sabbats where it's a lot less active. There's a few things you can do that are more active, but for the most part, this is a little more serious and a little more quiet within yourself. You can also have like tea, or you can make potpourri at this time, which is also kind of fun. Cutting up the apples and getting all the seasonings and stuff and drying them in a low oven, crushing them together and making, starting your Yule projects, or just making something to help with overall smelling the house good, because now you're going to be in there for a minute. Winter's coming. And you can use apples, cinnamon, walnuts, passion flower, caraway, myrrh, sage, pomegranates, again, are good ones to have at this time, because they're just a reminder of going into the dark part of that death aspect, going back to the old Hades lore, but also the aspect of new birth and revival, saying nothing ever ends in the way that may have been taught, but things come back to us in a much more profound way. Sometimes it's through lessons, and sometimes it's just through memories, but even those memories can do a great deal of benefit when we really allow ourselves to feel that. If you choose to do a Sabbat style meal, have some friends over for this type of a ritual, you want to use things like corn, beans, squash. If you have a preference, the kabocha is really good, especially if you slice it up, leave the skin on, a little bit of butter, brown sugar, a little nutmeg, pinch of cinnamon, unbelievable. Or you can use even spaghetti squash, which is really fun, especially if you've got little ones, letting them help prepare it, because it goes into squash and it comes out spaghetti type thing. So those are fun ways to incorporate that as well. Fresh apple cider, any of the root veggies that you have harvested, carrots, parsnips, potatoes, of course. radishes, things like that you may still have from earlier in the year. These are all good aspects to incorporate into the meal at this time. And just in general, we're going into the fall, great time to start really enjoying those fresh products from your garden. Um, and if you're a meat eater, this particular meal you want to go with wild game, whether it's elk, deer, venison, something along those lines, just as a way to connect more into the wildness of what life and what nature really is. Our lives are a little too structured. We need to have the more adventure part in some ways because it's part of the primal aspect of who we are. So this is a really fun way to incorporate all of that into our existence. Um, where was I at? I lost my I have notes. You can also do little crafts with the kids. If you have a bunch of corn out in the field, harvesting those leaves, making little corn dollies with them is really fun. And you can have them all over the house, especially on the mantle is preferred. And then keep one with your seeds. If you're most gardeners I know have at least a small bin, if not a gigantic one, full of seeds for the next year. Keep your corn dolly with the seeds as a way to remind the seeds as well they're being protected by the mother goddess, and when the spring comes again, they will want to grow and support all the energy as well. And it's kind of a fun little way of doing that. Mabon is also in some ways thought to be the name of one of the ancient Celtic goddesses, similar to Persephone, spending time in both the world of the living and the world of the dead, being able to pass back and forth between the two. So this is kind of her way of saying beginning to open the portal for the Lord to pass through. And some of those older legends also include the Green Man as part of a festival of the trees. Well, the trees are definitely putting on their best this time of the year. The yellows, the golds, the greens. When you look at the trees, they glow at this time of the year, especially when the sun's on the backside of them. It's just, there's a different form of magic in the fall when you're out in the woods or you're out where the trees change color with all the deciduous trees. It is amazing. And this is why it's nice to go out in all seasons and just watch how the trees change. Watch how it makes you feel differently in each season. You'll find your favorite. Everyone does. But this is part of that enjoyment of feeling those feelings and understanding that the cycles of life are continuous, which makes things a little less scary because you know that as something ends, something new begins, something begins and something ends. But it's a continual circle of life. It's the wheel of the year, the wheel of the tarot card. It's a continual flow, and Mabon is a good way to reflect on those types of energies because you're in a balanced state. This is also the time where you can begin to, if you choose, celebrate one of the dark goddesses, because the summer goddess, she's stepping into a different role. She's having to step into more of an authority figure over the land, but she's starting to have mourning, so she's not as vibrant and perky as she was. Still powerful. And that's the thing with the ancient beliefs. The Lord and Lady were equal in power all the time. There was never a time where one was stronger than the other. One had more sway over the land, but that was because of an agreement that they had made with each other. So the Dark Mother coming into her power at this time is the time of the crone. We're stepping into those times where the world's a little more withered. Fertility is not a real, like outside fertility. You're not seeing the plants growing this time of the year. They're dying down, which also is a good way to look at life. When in the spring, we're vibrant, we're young, we're bouncing everywhere. Watch some kids, trust me, you'll understand. And then you start to move into that time where you're working, you're preparing for the winter, you're building things up, you're having a lot of fun, everything is, rainbows and butterflies type feeling. But then you move into this time where you're wrapping things up, you're moving towards retirement, you're not by any means over, that's not what we're saying, but you're moving into that quieter state where you get to do more of the reflection. And the crone and the elder, crone being the female, the elder being the male, this is where you have the wisdom, because you've been there, done that. You might want to try it again, but you're not really sure. But you've already processed through a lot of these things. So this is where you're starting into that cycle of life. The year, again, repeats everything, and this is a way for us to understand our own physical cycles as well. And when you start to understand what the crone or the elder is doing, they can help you understand your shadow. This is a good time to start working at a little bit of shadow work if you've never done that. This is why you can prepare to, broach the subject with yourself. And you can learn about the whys. Why am I like this? Why did this happen to me? Why do I respond? Why does this trigger affect me like it does? This is where the wisdom of the elder and the crone come in. They show you how to work with this energy, how to process these emotions that might be a little more tough, because you're in a reflective state. You're in the period where you're drawing away from all the chaos going on outside, or all of the farm work and all of the outside stuff. You're moving into an internal, more inside world, and that is a physical thing as well, or a spiritual thing as well as a physical. So when you do that, you start to look at your patterns. You look at your shadows aspects. What comes forward when I say shadow first? Don't overthink it. The very first thing that comes forward is generally the one that you want to work on first, because the goddess and the god in this aspect are going to be bringing you things that you're ready to fix, that you are ready and mature enough to process them. It might take a little bit, it usually does, but in this energy, you're safe and secure to do so. And if you've never explored the aspect of the dark goddess, it's something in a safe way just to ask about if you're into the broader aspect of spirituality and not just the religious aspect. Understand that when you start to look at them, you might find someone that terrifies you at the first point, but it's not because of what they're doing, it's the energy they're bringing forward. It's generally this kind of brutal realism where they're not going to let you hide. They're not going to let you, well, I didn't know any better, so I can't be held responsible. They're not going to put up with that. The dark goddesses and dark gods are here to fix patterns. They're here to strip away the illusions, which is something that air is good at. Libra is a balance, but you can't be in balance if you're trying to hide stuff, because it always comes out. So that's where we're at with this particular Sabbat, is you're stepping into this energy of, where is my balance? Where's my light and dark? We all have it. Where are we at? And then coming to terms with accepting the darker side. And it may not be easy, but this is a way for you to examine it. Figure out, is it really as dark as you've been told? Or is it dark as you really thought? In most cases, it's probably not. I mean, there could be some things there, but what's the balance to it? Where do you fit? How does your energy balance with that of your partner, of your kids, of your coworker? Because a lot of the times, the stuff that you see as darkness, they see as a strength. What you see in darkness, they see in darkness in themselves, you see as part of their charm, their power, their abilities. In some aspects, there is an ultimate darkness, there is ultimate evil, that kind of thing. But in a lot of how we view the world has been misconstrued. So we need to understand genuine, harmful things versus just different quirks. And that's where this is, again, Mabon is a good one to look inside. Another way you can work with processing through your shadow is this is a period of Thanksgiving. You're being grateful for the blessings of the harvest, of the blessings of the year. We're not quite to Samhain yet, where you're kind of offering sacrifice almost. This is a time where you can write down a list of all the gratitude things that you have. The job, even if it's driving you nuts, write down the gratitude of, I am so happy and grateful now that I have this job. Even though, and you can put this in here, even though This is a situation that is really frustrating to me, but I am being taught and I am willing and grateful for the learning opportunity. Sometimes it's learning to say no. That's something to be grateful for. Sometimes it's learning to put up boundaries. Those are things to be grateful for. Sometimes it's being willing to step outside your comfort zone. These are all things you can be grateful for. Learn the lesson so you don't have to repeat the cycle. Again, Mabon is about finding that balance, looking at the cycle of time and knowing where you stand within it. And a lot of these teachers are not always couched as teachers. Sometimes they are that frustrating person, that coworker that's just literally jumping on your last nerve, the bills that are piling up, the health issues. And why would I say that these are things to be grateful for or to offer blessings for them? What can you learn from these? Because they are a blessing if you choose to look at them. That coworker that's driving you bonkers might be challenging you to say no, put up a boundary. Or it could be challenging you to experience quietness, patience, the Tao, Zen, whatever term you want to use. The bills, they could be a challenge. Are you managing your time and money responsibly? And if not, this is a lesson you can learn, which is a blessing because you can grow from this. The health issues. What am I not listening to my body about? What am I doing that I'm not feeding my body properly? It becomes the lesson, which turns into the blessing. That's why when those stuff happens, a lot of the old timers would talk about the saints and the guides and all of that. They saw them smile through their trials because they saw them as a blessing, something to grow beyond. And that's a blessing of Mabon, is it helps us see things from that perspective. And I feel at this particular year, 2025, this is a good time to look within. What are your blessings? Write them down. Physically write them down. Take a pen. Get a piece of paper. Do not do this on your phone. Do not do this on the keyboard. Pen in hand. Write them down. And trust me, when you get started, you're going to realize that that one piece of paper is not going to be sufficient. Because when you really get into that flow of seeing things as blessings and how you can grow from them and the lessons that are helping you become a stronger, wiser, more powerful individual, that page is going to not hold everything you have. And that's part of what you're doing with this energy. Do the blessings. If something comes up and you're like, oh, I don't know if that's a blessing or not, write it off onto a different page. Is that something that you need to process that lesson? Is it something that needs to be released? Is it something that you're holding on to because it used to be a really strong blessing, but it's not anymore? Then you can let it go. Let someone else have that blessing. You don't need it anymore, type of a thing. And it could be that you're drawing up karmic patterns at this point. You might be going through some ancestral things. Could be some inner child work. But when you really start to process and look at this stuff, all of a sudden the doors open and you're like, oh, those really were blessings. I really have something to be grateful for here because that's not what I thought it was. Because now you're looking at it from the aspect of a higher frequency, a more balanced state. You're taking the power away from it and you're returning it into its neutral ability, and it's no longer a problem. This takes time. This is not going to happen overnight. Some things you'll process pretty quick. But this is what you're working towards. This is why we're here. We are souls in these meat suits, these things, because we're here to grow, learn, experience. And when we really start to understand the lessons are blessings, it changes how we perceive the chaos of this world. So when you look at all of the list of your blessings, the things that you have to rationalize a little bit here to play with, to see a lesson, and that becomes what's the benefit, then you get to show gratitude. I'm so thankful for however you see the divine. God, Source, Lord and Lady, God and Goddess, however you see that aspect of that which is bigger than you, you can start offering gratitude. I am so thankful for having this lesson learned because I have grown this way through your guidance. I have experienced this lesson and now I can offer my knowledge, my wisdom. I'm stepping into my crone or elder period of time where I can share this with others and help them grow and experience and become better in their own lives. Mabon is a period of contemplation. It is a time to look within, see the darkness, and understand the light that you carry, because you carry both. Working with intentions for releasing the things that no longer serve you, you work on things that uplift the soul. And it could also be a time to really look in and start to understand what is it you're ready to release from this year. You're not doing the releasing now, you're setting yourself up for success later. Because at Samhain, that's the time to release things into the underworld. I no longer need this, I've learned my lesson from it, I have achieved the wisdom, which is knowledge plus experience, from this situation, and I no longer need the energy of the emotion that carries it. So I'm going to release that, and that's something to do at Samhain. Right now, take some time, go outside barefoot, might be a little chilly, but for a few minutes, enjoy a sunset. Enjoy watching the trees change color. Go to the park, go out in the woods if you are close enough to it, and just experience the shift in the temperatures. Feel that chill in the air, that animals are settling down. You might even hear an elk out there if you're in the right part of the mountains, starting to bellow, because as the temperatures drop, other things start to rise. And enjoy the shifting of the seasons. Enjoy the shifting of life. Reflect on how everything begins and everything has an ending. But just because it ends doesn't mean it's over. Just because it's a beginning doesn't mean it's small. Everything happens for a reason, and Mabon is the time to reflect on the cycles of life. It's a time to reflect on the cycles of who we are. And it's a time to reflect on the blessings, even when they don't really look like a blessing. With that, I will let you all go. Have a blessed and peaceful Mabon. Light a candle. Remember those who've passed beyond. And write down what kind of blessings you really have experienced. With that, if you care to comment down below, let me know your thoughts on this particular type of topic. Like the video, all those fun things. But really take some time to appreciate the changing of the seasons, because summer to fall is a pretty intense change, and from mother to crone, from warrior to elder, is a pretty intense period of change as well. Reflect on those energies and see how that changes how you view life, aging gracefully, and all of the rest of those fun things they like to talk about. With that, I'll let you guys go. Have a great rest of your holiday, your Sabbat, and I will see you in the next video.